let me introduce Abdulahi Alas Ahmed, who is a political analyst and governance expert, to give us a feel on what we are going to discuss today. Abdulahi, good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Good morning.
Happy Jamhuri Day. Still in the mood, right?
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
You're there? Ah, okay. What stood out for you?
First of all, the power of the state was very visible. There was relaxed mood in terms of how the security were handling Kenyans. They were not rough. There were different, operators of the security in terms of records code, the different sections of the military. A lot of discipline. The weather was good because there was no rain, too much sun. So Kenyans were generally, it was a very relaxed ambient atmosphere. And it was my first national event.
Really?
In my life. I have never gone to Jamhuri Days or any celebration in this country apart from yesterday.
That must be of some sentimental value to you.
Yes, so why I did that, when I was young, back in Mandera, Moi used to come, Kibaki, those things never used to interest me. But now, being a journalist, being a person who has now studied governance, it was important for me to hear from the horse's mouth and then feel that atmosphere. And after listening to him, I saw a very disciplined president, generally very particular with his dressing, very particular with his style.
Yes.
The order of the whole event was timely because I was there as early as 8:30. The president was there at 10, unlike his predecessor, who used to come at maybe 11 or 11:30 or thereafter. So the whole thing was, even the speeches, it was only the governor of Nairobi, Sakaja, the deputy president, and so the mood was that they allowed more entertainment. You know, there were cultural people presenting their songs, so it was more of a celebration of a country than politicians lecturing Kenyans on what to do, what not to do. Because the whole speech was like 3 people, and then there were prayers from. So I think Kenya, what I saw yesterday there is that if we take the discipline of our forces, especially the military, and then use that in our lifestyle, both at the private life and the governance mechanics, then Kenya is a country with huge potential, and management of resources is what is. We lack leaders who care about this country and who will prudently manage our resources. So 59 years down the line, after those speeches, we are still talking about what Kenyatta spoke about, inequality, how to reduce poverty, how to access healthcare, how to access clean water. I told you sometimes back I traveled to the side of Turkana, you know, Suguta Valley, Baragoi, that side. Kenya is an equal country. It's a country where 9,000 control 99.9% of the wealth of this country. So generally, we have all the reasons to celebrate. Our people fought for this independence. Kenya is not in the right track. If you look at the latest, poll, 85% of Kenyans believe that Kenya is going to the wrong direction.
Okay. And based on what the president said yesterday, part of the his plan for the country is the issue of encouraging farmers to access subsidized fertilizer. Of course, he talked about the 10 million bags of different assorted food products, including maize, to be imported, and of course, together with the other private sector, to allow the importation of 6 million bags of fertilizer. If you look at what the president said, and of course his manifesto and the Kenya Kwanza agenda, someone would say that the president is still articulating his agenda even post-election.
Well, I think what needs, first of all, the issue of investing in agriculture. It's because agriculture is contributing, 65% of job markets, where people get jobs, and close to 25% of our GDP. So how that policy, it's a good thing. What the president said is a good thing, that he's going to have it in 3 phases. Where fertilizer is going to be subsidized, 1.3 farmers will access, eliminating brokers and cartels. from reducing fertilizers from 7,000 to 3,500 is good. Now, the task the president has, whatever he said during the campaign or whatever he's saying now, what we want is how are we going to actualize that? How is my father, who has 6 farms, going to access ploughing machines? How is he going to access seeds? How is he going to access these fertilizers back in Mandara North? How is he going to be trained on modern farming? If you go to some part of this country, people are still using hoe and djembe. Well, we have very, sophisticated, simple machine that come from China and Singapore and these areas. So I think what the president needs to do is how do we invest in the equipment for the agriculture, not only fertilizers. That production can be very high. If someone can plant his farm 1 acre or 2 acre or 3 acres within less than a day or half a day, because the land is well ploughed, fertilizers are already provided, seeds are available, the training is there. We use greenhouse farming, or because of shortage of water in the country, rainfall's not coming, we make use of drip irrigation or splash drip irrigation. So all these things require policies. I'm sure the Ministry of Agriculture has those policies. We need men and women who are willing, especially Linturi now. CS Linturi has the burden on his shoulder that this country needs to feed itself. And for us to allow Kenyans to feed themselves, as the president said, we need to do all the things he said.
Yes.
Now, all those things require money and policy. So how are we going to actualize them? I know the budget is currently operating, belongs to the previous administration that he was the deputy president. His budget is coming up. I mean, it's already in progress because budgets begin by February every year. And then this September, already the work has started. So the budget for 2023, 2024, it's already in progress, in motion. It's processes because it's more than 8-9 stages. So once we go into January, he will be talking about his budget. Now, he needs to invest in that so that the 47 counties, partly agriculture is devolved. I mean, it's part of the devolved system. So how do we also make sure that the national government gives extra money to the county and the Ministry of Agriculture, but those resources are managed well from the coffers of the counties, and then farmers are not only given fertilizers and seeds, but also trained on modern farming. Yes.
Let's go back and talk about what happened yesterday. It was a Jamhuri Day with a different, of course, for the first time we saw a celebration with a theme.
Yes.
Innovation and technology. Perhaps this sends a different signal in the way things are going to be run moving forward, because when you have, initially we would have a celebration without a theme, but this time around we had a theme: innovation and technology. And of course we saw what the president said. The attendees also signed for the Arizona Scholarship Technology and the ICT training. What did you say about that as a journalist?
Well, first of all, I am also waiting for my Arizona enrollment because I was there.
Oh, you logged in?
No, I'm waiting for it. I don't know how it's going to be done.
Okay.
But investing in ICT is a good thing, but it's not the biggest employer in this country. It is a good thing to invest in technology. It is not the biggest employer. The biggest employer is teaching. Lecturers, administrators, secondary, high school, primary, teaching. So we must invest in teaching first. Because for you to even get marketplace for IT, and you need to produce graduates. So as we do investment, I'm not against ICT, because right now it is easier to apply for a passport online. I did that with my East African passport. And the problem is now, when you bring, like a case when I was renewing my passport, I applied to renew my passport in 2020. And I got it this year, early this year. Because what happens is, as the president talks about cartels and brokers, there are people in Nyayo House who want you to pay so that they process your passport. Yet, it is their duty to process the passport because that's their work. So, as a journalist, I could see they wanted money. And I've applied online. So what I did is, I went to Embu and then processed my passport to take to Nairobi. Then I tweeted immigration that I've applied for my passport in 2020. Every time I come there, it's either postponed or there was COVID or there's a matter. Now, why should I wait for renewing my passport for over 2 years? And within 5 hours, I received a text from immigration that your passport has been processed and it's supposed to offer the GPO. I only paid 500 shillings to collect it. So, the people manning these computers, how disciplined are they in making sure that process documents for Kenyans. So if you invest in technology, but the people, meaning the infrastructure and the ecosystem of our ICT, are waiting for kickbacks and money so that they process a birth certificate, a passport, or a lost ID for you, then how is the president going to achieve effective and efficient managed information technology infrastructure and ecosystem under his watch? So the Ministry of Interior and the guys in charge of immigration, the guys in charge of licensing of DCI or whatever it is, all these people must know that once I pay the money to the government, I need to come for my passport or my documents ready. I'll give you an example of what one of my friends, Dr. Salah Abd Sheikh, wrote on Facebook, that a Finnish, someone from Finland and someone from Kenya who are outside their countries applied for lost passports. The guy in Finland got it within 14 days. He filled it online, it went to Finland, it was processed, and then it was... I agree that the processing of passports must be done from one center to not allow, aliens or other people getting passport. But now the process is as important as the end product. Yeah. So the Kenyan guy who was waiting to get his passport is still waiting for it for 2 years. While the guy who's a Finnish from Finland got it within 14 days. What does that tell you about our processes and our governance in this country, that people are still corrupt? So regardless of how much, I saw a president who is very enthusiastic about these issues. But now, if the government you're leading is not disciplined, if your government that you're leading is not compassionate and have passion for their jobs to serve Kenyans, and they're waiting for kickbacks, when you're paying them 6-figure salary, 7-figure salary, 5-figure salary, yet they expect me to pay them like in the biggest... I want to tell the president and the people who are handling his mechanics, immigration is a rotten place. Nyayo House is rotten to the core. People are making billions and millions through corruption. Kenyans are paying money to collect their passports. Kenyans are paying money to get their birth certificate. Kenyans are paying for everything. Besides the government taxing them on even water or every receipt you buy. Oloo, you've seen there's a tax, VAT. So I would like the president to crack the whip on the public service people working under him. If it is Mandera County government, the county government has a governor. The national government has the representative called the county commissioner. The county commissioner must know why my mother, who applied for her lost ID, did not get... They should be accountable, her ID in 2 years. Okay. So you see, so improving infrastructure of the ICT is good. Yes. But it is not the biggest employer. That sends a very chilling effect, because the president said that 85% of all government and of our operations and are going to be digitized. But when you talk of just processing a renewal of a passport taking 2 years, and 85% of all government operations and services will be digitized, this one sends a very chilling effect down the spine of Kenyans watching. I know, but the president also needs to have an audit section within the ICT infrastructure, so that Victor Oloo, who is in charge of processing passport, has a workload or backlog of over 10,000 passports. And then you ask this person applied for this passport 4 months ago. Why is it in the system? So unless we have that, and people know their auditors who will audit this thing, he can even have a machine in State House. And then he says, what is the process of passports in the country? What's happening with the, he needs to have secretariat. He doesn't have to be him. But the message that the president, I am not going to tolerate. He doesn't talk about corruption, by the way. Okay. I am not going to tolerate people who are going to stall services because they want kickbacks. Let's take a break. And we come back, we're still going to circle back and talk about the issues that were raised yesterday. The president talking about digitization of government services, that's e-services that will be on government e-platform. Remember, we are still also waiting for Gabriel Kagombe, who is a member of parliament of Gatundu South, to join us on set. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more.
now 7:35. We're still waiting for Gabriel Kagombe, Member of Parliament, Gatundu South constituency, to join us on set. Mheshimiwa, you're running out of time. All right, okay. But nonetheless, we'll still have to run the show. I have Abdulahi Ahmed, who is, of course, a journalist by training as well, governance expert and a political analyst. We talked about the issue of ICT that the president outlined yesterday. Let's talk about the issue of, yes, you have the ICT, the infrastructure is another. The president talked about creating 100,000 kilometers of highway and, connecting the network across the country. Achievability is one thing, getting it done is also another thing.
I think the Communication Authority of Kenya and the Ministry of ICT, led by our group brother Oloo, must fast track on how we get network across Kenya. ICT depends on networks. For you to access an online, then you have to have a network providing, whether you're buying data or you're going to, a cyber, then you need to have network, in most of places of the country. But in the same breath, you will rather have these services in Mandera or Homa Bay or Busia or Turkana, Lodwar, than travel to Nairobi. So the president's ambition is a good thing, but the ambition is to have a plan and how to execute that plan. And that now falls under the cabinet secretaries, falls under the permanent secretaries, under the directors and those different ministries, both especially in the communication. So ICT will improve the lives of Kenyans by cutting cost, either in traveling or even because when you come to Nairobi, if you don't have a relative, you'll spend money on a lodge. Yeah. So it is good to decentralize ICT. Thank you very much. But it requires network. You see, just like the president said, we need to have at least a high court in every county. Yeah. So that people of Mandera don't travel either to Garissa or to Nairobi to file a case. The same with other parts of the country. So all these things, the concerned departments must now take what the president has said and then look, if there are no policies in place, that policy develops from an idea. So it's time to develop the policies on how to achieve those things. How are they going to be effective? Every project, in a project cycle management, Oloo, you don't get 100% in the first few years. So if you can have the ICT infrastructure devolved, as in decentralized, and then in the first year we get a 50% pickup, that is a success in Kenya. Yes. Because at least in my village, every home has someone who has finished class 8 or form 4 with a phone. So the information will still reach parents and the society. That way now, people can travel even to the sub-county. And by the time this ICT infrastructure comes, it will open up business for people in the ICT sector. So cyber caves will be coming up, you see, so that they provide these services. So in Ramo, in Banisa, in Wajir North, in Butte, cybers will be coming up because 1, there is electricity, 2, there is a network, 3, they can offer the service because they are clients who want these things. And most of the people who want these services are not people you will say are literate. So through that, cyber caves will be making money. Counties can have an ICT center in the county where they provide these services for a cheaper price, and then they subsidize the price, and then they can also gather revenue. It's not a must that the county governments will let the private sector only. The county government and the Ministry of ICT can have a cyber cave with a photocopy machine, with a photo session, for passport and everything, under one roof where you go in and get out, you pay like 300 or 400 shillings. That will be a revenue for the county. And then you pay through M-Pesa pay bill. You don't even need to collect cash. So that way, it is going to create more opportunities. But now we need to develop, if the policies are there, we need to budget for them and then we run with it. Yeah. We need to educate the people also so that there is civic education on the same, through the chiefs, through the county commissioners and all that. It is a dream that all Kenyans must actualize it.
Yeah. When you talk about actualization, As we speak, 2 million bags of fertilizer is already at the port of Mombasa, and we expect 4 million more to be imported.
Yeah.
This is something that raised some kind of an eyebrow some weeks back with the farmers in the South Reef talking about the fertilizer, the subsidized, of course, but then the big issue was the sale of maize in the silos. When you have got 2 million bags, when you have got 4 million still on the high waters, the government is planning to actualize the farming, the agriculture that the president was talking about. But then now, where does this leave the local farmer without much of a burden?
My take will be, Victor, is that as long as there are farmers in this country who have maize, we buy from them first. Okay?
Yes.
First, we exhaust what we have in the country. Once we do that, then we can bring the surplus. Because once the people in Nyandarua or Kirinyaga or Western Kenya or Rift Valley have exhausted their stock by selling to the government, I'm sure the government has mechanism to track this. Then from there we can bring in maize. But it will be contradictory for the government to bring maize when we have maize. It's either someone is playing with our mind and doing business with us by telling us one thing on television and doing something else by action. So let's first buy what we have from the maize farmers in Rift Valley. You have seen guys in Washingisu in North Rift were asking, why are you bringing maize? And people were showing it on Facebook. You know, these days people, you only need a phone.
Yeah.
Because within the journalism sector, we have the citizen journalists. You have a phone, you show them, this is the maize I have, 100 bucks. The government is not buying. Why is the government bringing maize from another place when I already have 100 bags, 200 bags?
Yeah.
So let's first, through our chiefs and county commissioners and our village, because of devolution, we have village elders, village administrators, ward administrators, sub-county administrators, and then we have the office of the county commissioner and deputy and all that. So through that, we can actualize that the maize can be brought to the sub-counties and then we buy from them, then like that. But now, how do you want to bring maize and people to farm then? If you bring extra maize, what is the essence of farming? So bring the surplus after we've exhausted the stock we have.
Whatever is in the store right now.
Stock, then let farmers buy the fertilizer and go start farming. So let's now plan in a way that the president talked about building dams for irrigation. That is a good thing. But there are people with rivers who just need the equipment. They can do irrigation 3-4 seasons. So all this requires people developing policy, people planning in the Ministry of Agriculture, making sure that all these because different regions have different needs. The areas that have, Wajir has no river, but Garissa and Mandera have rivers. So the need for Wajir is big dams. But the need for Mandera will be providing engines for irrigations, ploughing machines, fertilizers and all that. So let's work with the county government to actualize that, but there is no need of bringing surplus when you already have a stock. It's contradictory of the government to reduce living cost.
Okay. In just a few days ahead of us, the new administration will be clocking 90 days in office. Perhaps what are some of the hits and misses that you've so far witnessed in this administration?
The president has not settled, and that makes the cabinet secretaries do their work very difficult. Because if the president is all over, running around, talking to us everywhere, then we ask, when are the cabinet secretaries going to do their work? When are we going to listen to them? They are the guys. Delegation of duty is one of the best leadership quality a man can do. You and I trained in journalism, and we say there is a journalistic dictum. Don't show, don't tell.
Yeah.
You show, you don't tell. President William Ruto should know that from his body language, from his rhetoric, from his policies, he wants to be measured in the same scale with Kibaki. But Kibaki was a silent man. He showed us what he was doing. So if you want to compete, you want to be the second. He will not beat, it will be a miracle for him to beat Kibaki of what he did in 10 years. For him to do that, he needs to be very silent. Go back to State House, do a few things here and there, yes, but allow the cabinet secretaries, the permanent secretaries, the directors in those ministries who are the technocrats, guys who have been there from 1964, 65, you know, who have trained, either they are on contract or consultants in different departments, do the job. That way, the president will have results. Until then, if he is the one launching every project, if he is the one doing that, then his priority during the elections was the cost of living. We are okay that he has subsidized, he removed the subsidies for fuel, and right now people are still struggling with it. It's a bit expensive, but food has gone up by 15+% in terms of cost. Fuel is up. So the first priority should be first, how do Kenyans afford what to eat? Poverty is not defined as someone who does not have what to eat. Poverty is more than that.
Yeah.
If someone has only the money to buy for food for his kids, when will they buy newspapers so that they have access to information? That's their right. When are they going to buy a TV and watch shows so that they get educated? When are they going to have health insurance? It's not about food. Poverty is more than food. Food is just one aspect of it.
Yeah.
So there are other elements that we need, which are rights, right to information. So if my son has not eaten, then how do I be? Newspaper is 60 bob. It's not every Kenyan who can buy a newspaper because there are other priorities. So they cannot buy newspapers, they can't buy health insurance, they can't even read. So I think the president did not fulfill his promises on 50% of cabinet women. That is a miss. Food is still very high. He talked of the first priority. It's becoming another. He avoided the issue of GMO.
Yeah.
He completely avoided for a very long time now. In his 90 days, he talked of food and other food items. So he knows that Kenyans right now will not take things that just come like that.
Yeah.
They are not consulted. So 100 days, 90 days coming, we will give him the benefit of doubt. He has put up his infrastructure of governance in terms of cabinet secretaries. The PS are up and rolling in their offices now. Christmas is coming. Now, we will start measuring him after we come back from Christmas.
Okay, you talked of the president should now settle down and delegate. Expand on that.
Well, if you look at the president's way of doing things, when you have 23 or 22 cabinet secretaries and 51 permanent secretaries, you want these people also to lead. You receive now. He has cabinet in place. He has advisors in place. Relax. Stay in State House. Receive information. I mean, every morning before even you and I wake up, he receives national intelligence brief. You see? So he's a guy who is, you know, up and take. He's very disciplined. He said he doesn't drink. He doesn't look like he does drugs. He's physically fit. He's still young, 50-something. Let him give the cabinet secretaries and the permanent secretaries time to work. Time to, because you cannot appoint a cabinet secretary today and then within a month you want them to come to State House for 3 times for a meeting. When are they going to plan? When are they going to meet staff across the country? They have representatives everywhere. I mean, the auditor office has officers in the 47 counties. So they have officers in the 47 counties. So he can also use technology to meet them. He can create a Zoom meeting for 5 of them this week, 5 maybe end month, but at least give them a month to settle, delegate most of these duties, but keep them on tabs. I will not allow Ruto to let the cabinet ministers like that. No, keep tab on them, but give them some space to breathe so that they can do, and then you can receive. That way, you can reflect every 3-4 months.
Okay.
But weekly briefs, monthly briefs, the secretariats are there. I mean, people like David D are part of the senior advisors there. I mean, you know, so they can deal with information, analyze the data, and then give him the actual scenario of what's happening in the country. Yeah.
Abdulahi, let's talk about something that most parliamentarians actually, the president also talked about sometimes last week, and it's still even in the papers here, that the president is proposing to create the office of the official opposition. Well, many people would say that that office does not squarely lie for Raila Odinga. According to the proposal, a coalition of parties or a coalition party can pick any person of their choice to fill that position of official opposition. But then this would mean that we'll have to go back to the new constitution, the 2010 constitution. After the 2010 constitution, that particular bill, that particular position was completely abolished. And as we speak, it's a debate in motion. And of course, Parliament has, you know, their fingers on that bill. Sometimes next year, it will be on the floor of the House for a debate. Let me get your voice on that.
Well, before I do anything, I will refer back to the BBI judgment, both from the High Court and the Court of Appeal, that went even up to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Can the President initiate a constitutional amendment process? The President is the property of this country, is a state officer. Once that happens, we were told by the courts, he is not an ordinary person. We were told the route to that is through either the popular initiative or through Parliament. Now, what does that judgment say? The basic structure of the Constitution can be altered through the primary constituent power, which must include 4 sequential processes, namely civic education, public participation, collation of views, constituent assembly debate, and ultimately a referendum. Now, first of all, when you want to create an office of the opposition, that's a big office. And I guess it will have 2 deputies at least, looking at Kenyan politics. That belongs, the person of that office will not be paid from the salary of either the members of Parliament or President William Ruto. It will be paid from the taxpayers' coffer. So, Article 1 says the supreme power belongs to the people.
Right.
So if the people did not employ the opposition of the leader, who is the president to employ him? Or even create entertain the idea? So Raila himself has disputed that yesterday on Citizen. It was reported Citizen Online or even the newspapers that he said this is just bringing BBI through the back door.
Yeah.
So I think what President Ruto has realized is that the shoe was on the other side when he was the deputy president. Now the shoe is on him. He has realized, how do you govern a country where Uhuru and Ruto are outside government? President Uhuru is now dealing with DRC. You've seen he's very comfortable.
Yeah.
Raila is very tough to handle. He's a very strong character. Too big for Ruto. If he goes to the streets, it will be very difficult to govern. So he has to come with a way of entertaining him, that this is coming, it's either for you or not. Do you think these people don't meet? They do. Remember, Ruto and Raila were together before, and NAC, or, you know, those years. So Uhuru, President Ruto is playing the politics of what you call the checkmate in the chase. When you play chess, is the checkmate.
Yeah.
The king. So every time his politics is coming up, is there something we are not being told about the central Kenya, Mount Kenya? Didi Nyoro has just kept quiet. Ichungwa is taking a low profile. The deputy president, Gachagua, is allowing the president to do things. Moses Kuria has like hibernated. Is there things we don't know? Yes, there are, because most of the things that we don't know are done between 12 p.m. a.m. up to 5 a.m. when you and I are sleeping. That is how these people operate. If they want to have a meeting, do you think Ruto and Raila did not meet? They did. If they did, you and I don't know. They can meet in a hotel under very strict, you know, secrecy meeting, and they discuss these things. So the issue of office of the opposition, as it stands, it cannot come from the president. It cannot. Because right now you look at judiciary. Ruto is enticing the judiciary to allow him to govern. Look at the 3 billion they're given. That is the money they're going to play around with. When the CJ, Mother Kome, was picked, maybe Uhuru thought he could use her. But she couldn't, because one, she was coming from the human rights sector.
Yeah.
She was a social activist. But if you look at her qualification, she was not the most qualified. I came up through documents that she had a pass in the university. There are people who had second class upper. There are people who had second class lower. There, you know, like that. So, but in the same judiciary, we have tough judges who have cut a niche for themselves. Isaac Leona is one of the toughest judges I've ever seen. We have Philomena Milu. So all these mechanisms, how is it going to... Kenya is like any other part of the country where the elites, judicial elites, economical elites, political elites are still playing around with us and taking a circle, looking at the interests. So this position, it's going to be interesting to know how Parliament is going to circumnavigate and then go around the judgment of BBI, because we already have a presidents from the High Court, Court of Appeal, up to the Supreme Court.
Let me read a tweet which Honorable Raila Odinga sent out yesterday. In his tweet, Raila Odinga said that Mr. Ruto's memorandum presents a proposal without recognizing the fact that BBI reports, which are official government documents, contain all those proposals coupled with the rationale on why they had to be deemed necessary by the people of Kenya. Instead, Mr. Ruto has appropriated the views of these people and speaks on the proposal of his own. Okay, it further says, but further than that, making these proposals, he fails foul of the same demand he made and used to lead the challenge against BBI.
Yes.
So, Mr. Odinga continues to say that during BBI, Mr. Ruto demanded, one, that a president cannot initiate a constitutional amendment. Two, that amendments must start with the people. Three, that the process of the amendment be people-driven. And four, that amendments must chiefly center on the interest of the common man. Based on what you've said and based on the ruling of the Supreme Court, that the president cannot initiate a popular initiative like the BBI. At this particular point, can you say that this process is dead before it started?
You and I were here last year, November, when we talked about some of these issues. You know, Oka Kenya, Oka this, Oka that. Some of these things are there to test the waters. You know, when you throw the hook into the river, you don't know what's going to come out of it. The president knows some of these things. I think he needs to concentrate on the living standards, the cost of living. That is the priority right now. He told us himself that our constitution is 80% progressive and very good. When something is 80% good, that's an A. Oloo, that is an A.
Yeah.
If you get an A, 80 marks, you don't need to worry about the 20%. Right now, the president has a lot on his tray in State House. There is the issue of judiciary building high courts. There is the judiciary of task force for the police conditions. There is the report from the task force from education, CBC is an issue. There is the issue of gender. You see, all these things require money. So the more you bring more, you're just burdening the taxpayer. Kenya is the second highest taxed country in Africa after South Africa. And 80% of the informal sector depend on agriculture and juakali and other things. So, as much as I understand, at the back of his mind, Ruto is worried about 2027. But he needs to worry about the 5 years he has been given the mandate to serve. So, reviewing the constitution, even the current document, it was from 2002 to 2010, 1992 to 2010 is how many years? So it's going to take a while. They say the constitution is a living document where things will be done progressively as the need and circumstances will change for us. As we speak today, if I was in the circle of the president, I will tell him, with due respect, Mr. President, reviewing the constitution is not a priority right now. Kenyans are dying of hunger. He has confessed 6-point-something million don't have food. 20 plus counties don't have 3 meals. There is a drought right now. There is the issue of food production. So I think the president should sit back and first govern us. Don't bring us proposals barely 90 days before you are in office. At least Uhuru and Raila brought it 2018. You see, 8 years after they were in power. You can't be in office for 90 days and all you think about is Ruto's mechanics of politics is to operate in a very cunning, strategic way that people do not sense what he's doing, but entice them. Parliament is giving them CDF. You see, he's enticing judiciary and CDF. CDF with parliamentarians, oversight for the Senate. These guys will be cool. So we need Parliament, even though the Speaker is from UDA, he should tell the President, Your Honor, do you think, Mr. President, it's a priority right now for Kenyans? Look at what's happening in the streets. I mean, what about the people who are living in the streets? What about people who don't have jobs? What about the kids who are going to school without food? I mean, you should provide maybe milk for children in pastoral areas. So priorities for him is kind of mixed.
Yeah.
He needs to take the cost of living very serious. Priority number one, priority number two.
All right. It's 8 on the dot. Let's take a break. And we come back. We're still going to talk about that issue. What if Raila Odinga picks that position of the official opposition? What if he doesn't? These are some of the questions that I want us to answer when we come back after this break. It's our time. Perfect. Welcome back. Abdulahi Ahmed, who is a journalist, a governance expert, and a political analyst, still here with me in studio. We are talking the issue of the sweet deal, as Raila would call it, that aspect of having that office of the official opposition. Who will fill that position, if at all it will be created? And going the parliamentary route, is it the right route to go, having in mind that we have got a different system of governance to what we have right now? So if it goes to Parliament, Abdulahi, let me just get it. What if Raila accepts the position? What next?
But how does he accept a position that the president has been told you can't create it and he's creating it? He's not even in position to accept. Our President Kenyatta tried to bring a BBI so that opposition leader can have a seat in the dining, or when he has a knife for the cassava, or the so that the constitution, the courts were very clear on Article 255, 256, 257, how it's going to be done, whether it's a parliament. But is it even need? Why does a president who has just been given a mandate to serve Kenyans for the next 5 years talk about constitutional amendment before even 90 days in his office? I mean, why? I mean, you're talking of cost of living, universal healthcare, I mean, education, advancement in most areas, ECD classes. So President Ruto is just playing with the minds of Kenyans. He's testing the waters. Kenyans will not accept it. We do not need a constitutional amendment right now. We need unga to come down from 200 to 80 shillings. We need Kenya Creameries, KCC, to be producing milk so that we buy milk at 50 bob. We need villages having equipment for grinding maize in their own capacity, so that the Ministry of Agriculture is working with local, so that food production, either for subsistence or commercial, is produced. Those are the priorities. We had an election. Ruto was declared the winner. Former Prime Minister was defeated. It should remain so. The Right Honorable Prime Minister has his rights to oversight, to participate in the governance as he did in 1982 or 87 or 90. Nothing will change that. Okay. But the idea of creating a position for someone because you think he's going to give you headache in governing, is something we should be very concerned about. Yes. Then it means that we'll have to revisit the constitution. If at all that position has to be created. We are in a different system of governance, parliamentary. You'd imagine the process that it would go. Do you really think the president would really allow Kenyans to go the referendum route? Why will he want people to do referendum when the cost of living is very high? People will rebel against him. And one thing, President Ruto is no longer a hustler. He's a dynasty now. He's a dynasty. His kids will be called dynasties because they are the sons of the 5th president. He was accusing Raila of being a dynasty because his father was Odinga, is it? What are we going to do about his children? They are also going to be called dynasties. He's a product of a dynasty, if you look at critically, because when he was the youth chairman for Kanu, he was dining and wining with Moi. Okay? The opportunities, he even used to go and pick money from Moi. So he's a product of a dynasty. Now that he became the president, Ruto is among the richest people in this country. So he's no longer a hustler. He's no longer the chicken seller. His circumstances have changed. His fortunes have changed. His kids have grown up in a better life than he did. So technically he becomes a dynasty himself. So the way you treat Kenyans on forward is the regalia of clothes and just bringing things and dumping to Kenyans. Kenyans will ask you, we gave you a job, the highest paying. We took you to State House. What have you done for us? Forget about giving job to Raila. Raila was your biggest competitor. He lost the election, yes. Yeah. We gave it to you. Why do you want to amend the constitution before even you fed us? We can't feed our kids. We can't take them to school. Access in health is a problem. Why is it a priority for you? It's because he knows as long as Raila is outside, if he gave headache to Ruto, whose father was a president, who grew up in State House, Ruto is wondering what kind of a stress you're going to have with this guy. Fix him somewhere. Uhuru is already fixed. Fix Raila somewhere. It will be smooth for you to govern. But he forgets that the 7 million Kenyans who voted for him did not belong to Ruto or Uhuru or Raila. They were Kenyans who wanted change. Yeah. They were Kenyans who were yearning to have a better life. I told you, Human Development Index, I think we are number 19 or 16 in Africa. You see, so it is not a priority. I am sure they will try it in Parliament, both at the Parliament, the National Parliament and the Senate. Both speakers have no otherwise but to comply with the President. But Kenyans must not allow politicians to be driving the narrative.
When it goes to Parliament, and because they have numbers, most likely it will sail through.
It will end up in court.
It will end up, right?
Yeah, it will end up in court. Why we have, most people say that Kenya is a litigant country. Yes. If I'm not satisfied with the issue, do you want me to take a bomb or a gun? No, I go to court and express why this is not right, because that's the most civil way of handling these issues. So I think members of Parliament are there to represent, to legislate, and to oversight. This idea of only running around with the CDF should come to an end. You are given a position of a high prestige. Please serve Kenyans and not your political class or leaders.
Okay, all right. When you talk of that, Raila Odinga said now that you should now reintroduce BBI. Because basically, when that's happening, then it means that you'll have to bring the copy of BBI from the shelves, put into the table and say, this is exactly what I was talking about. But is the president ready again to introduce BBI, something that he vehemently opposed?
We'll play his videos, and that contradicts whatever he stood for. If he was just a person who was shrewd, using deception to get to power, these things have been researched on in the world. It's not the first person. He will. So Kenyans have to rebel. We have to tell President Ruto, listen, Mr. President, you wanted a job. We gave you the job. Now, this is our money. It's the taxpayers' money. We want our children to access schools. Do the job we gave you to do. There is nowhere we told you give Raila a position. There is nowhere we told you our first priority is to amend the constitution. No, that's not what we said. What we told you is, look, 59 years after independence, we celebrated yesterday, we are still talking about the issues we spoke about in 1963. Inequality, reduction of poverty, access to education, opening up infrastructure. I mean, that's the concern of the president. So I think he will lose it. Kenyans will not accept it. And the maturity of our democracy now is that Kenyans can reject you through the ballot. So giving Raila a job, there are winners and people are defeated in election. I contested in 2077 in Mandera North. I didn't get as much as my competitor who got job because the factors that played were around money. It's not about competence or what you know, no, it was about who you are affiliated with and how much money you have. That did not change much, but I'm sure with the progress of our constitutional dispensation developing, we are going to a place where people who had no money this time were elected, not in Northeastern, but other parts, because in Northeastern elders are still anointing people.
Interesting days ahead after they
Yes,
come from recess.
it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. This is something I know this is quite close to the hearts of many guardians, parents across the country, even students themselves. The president said that the junior secondary school will be domiciled in primary. This sounded like some sweet music in the ears of many.
But do we have the infrastructure? Because you're talking about grade 8 and 9 who are Form 1 and Form 2s within.
Yes.
Some schools even don't have classes for ECD. So it's incumbent upon the president with his CS for education to provide the infrastructure for those classes. They need teachers, extra teachers. I'm happy they said they are going to employ 30,000.
Yeah, by next year.
By next year.
Yes.
So if they're going to do it bits, at least by the end of the year, every county will have 338, 307 teachers, which is relatively still very small to the ratio of a teacher to a student, but it is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So do we have the infrastructure for those in place? Those two classes, Form 1 and Form 2, domiciled in primary schools, okay. Do we have the teachers for them? Do we have the classes for them? Do we have the books for them? And if you do all that, then how is that going to reach them in their schools?
Yeah.
By opening? So the president might not have even a lot of Christmas, especially the education sector and himself. They must lock themselves in a room and make sure that by early January, contractors can be given to construct 2 classes, at least in every school, so that the kids can come. Because most of these schools are already overcrowded, some of them.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure needs to be put in place so that at least this can be actualized. I agree that people of the same age group should stay together, because when you take someone who is class 13, 12 to secondary where they are 15, 16, it becomes a problem to you know, insulate and you know, adapt. But when people are still within 12, 13, 14 in the same, teachers can still provide discipline and everything, but kids can still be comfortable around them. So I think it is a good thing. Yeah. But how that is going to be actualized is the biggest headache for the president.
But the biggest fear was the rate of transition, how it was going to happen. Taking a student who is a grade 6 kid going to junior
12
secondary,
to 11.
exactly,
Yeah.
transitioning to junior secondary school, the culture shock.
Yeah.
Perhaps this one sounded some sort of good news to the parents.
I think it was more reasonable. This one was more reasonable than the previous proposal that they should go to secondary school. Let's have class 6 students and Form 1, Form 2 as in junior high, junior secondary 7 and 8 within. That's a very good reasoning.
Yes.
And I'm sure it came from parents. That's why even when the task force was appointed, they collected views. I'm sure I saw them in Mandera, collected views, Mandera Secondary School. So it was the most reasonable and logic to have kids of the same age bracket to stay together, so that by the time they are 14, 15, they can transition to secondary school, like before. At least Form 1, Form 2, 13, 14, when you go to secondary, you're 15, 16, relatively very good.
Let me ask you a question. How is Mandera in terms of governance right now?
Mandera is good. We have done tremendous improvement in terms of infrastructure, but reducing poverty in terms of investing in the software, especially in agriculture. They did it in the last 2 budgets of 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, but there has been a lot of investment that much into agriculture. It's relatively peaceful. Way better than 2013. We have to be honest. It takes 30 years for devolution to pick up in other countries. Ours is still developing. By the time the new county government was coming to place in 2013, we had no systems in place, so we had to establish 10 departments or 10 ministries where it is human resource and policies and everything. Right now, we might not have the best assembly in terms of membership, or even the county government.
Is the executive completely formed right now?
Yes, right now the chief officers is in court.
Okay.
There is a court order against appointment and contracting until 27th of January. But by and large, the CECs are in place. They're doing the best thing. We'll wait and see. But the previous government, there were issues of resource mismanagement. Our Mandera County government file is one of the 31 by EACC to the DPP, you know, referring prosecution against certain entities who have been embezzled almost at 5 million. So people are going to be charged. But by and large, are we better than 2012? Yes. Did we get the software mechanics of governance for the people of Mandera? Relatively below 40%.
Okay. Please tell the governor we need him on the show.
Governor Mandera is called Mohammed Adan Khalif. He's a friend of mine. I am sure if he's invited, he will come.
Tell him we need him over to speak to Kenyans.
KBC would like to invite you, Mr. Mohammed Adan Khalif. Mark Oloo really was asking to talk to you.
Governor, you got the memo. You got the memo on national television. All right. We heading to the Christmas, and of course, I know many Kenyans are now contemplating to have that particular. This is going to be a different one because it's coming just after coronavirus. For 2.5 years, Kenyans didn't travel home and just enjoy. But I think this time around is going to be what's good in Mandera to travel.
There is camel milk. There is camel meat.
Okay.
There is, you know, goats. I'm sure it is like any other Kenyan setup. You will get local Kenyans who are doing business there. I'm sure the guy with the best school is from Nyanza in Mandera. He has a cyber cafe. He was there from 2000. So a lot of good things. If you go there, you can buy good shirts from Somalia.
Good.
Yeah, bring sugar and milk for your family.
Next time. Carry some.
Yes,
please,
carry some.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I think that's the right time for us. Even they say that even if you're the best dancer, know the best time to quit the stage. It's time for us to quit the stage. Okay. Thank you so much. We've been speaking to Abdulahi Ahmed, who is also a governance expert and a political analyst. He's also a journalist by training, joining me on set. Honorable Gabriel Kagombe, no, that's not the way to do it. You promised to come to the show. You are a no-show. Not even a notification. I think you can do better. Thank you so much. You, as a viewer, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Victor Oloo. We're taking a break, but GMK continues after this. Stay tuned. Good morning.